everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With us today, we have Daniel McAdams, our co-host. Daniel, good to have you back.
Good to be back, Dr. Paul.
Yes,
very good to be
after
back.
That very good conference that you organized. And a few people showed up, didn't they?
It was a great event. I've got a couple pictures, actually. I shouldn't spoil the surprise, but at the end, a couple show and tell pictures. But yeah, we had the biggest crowd we've had in a few years. So
yeah, that's excellent.
And
you add on to that quality, boy, we had a grand
good quality
group of people.
Great
there.
Quality, great people.
But today, we're going to talk a little bit about politics. I always think, I'm not into this politics stuff anymore. But we like to mention, or at least give a brief opinion about some of the bigger issues that are going on. And right now, I think people are talking about and planning to get to the TV set tomorrow and listen to the great debate.
The great debate.
And the whole thing is there's going to be a few out there that will remain more silent, wouldn't turn that on for anything. And I know a few of them. But I'll be watching because I think that I have to know what the enemy's doing. I haven't decided who's the enemy. But the ideas are going to be out there challenging the libertarian issues. But I want to start off by the announcement. I'll bet you Trump is cringing. I mean, just think. Dick Cheney supports Harris? I thought Dick Cheney was a Republican, conservative, constitutionalist. He wasn't, his votes weren't the worst in the world when I knew him in Congress. But that was just a facade. That's to get his foothold in there. And he had a miraculous career moving up to become president. You say, president? Was he president? Yeah, he was president. I bet he was the most powerful vice president we ever had.
For a long
time. Because he was the one that ran the show. And I think he favored neocons and things like that. We had part. And but his goal now is to support Trump and get rid of this. There's a time when you have to stand up over partisanship. We can't let the Republicans do what they're doing. They're destroying the world and the country. So he is a man of character and boldness, and he's standing up for righteousness. So he supported Harris, and he has tag-along daughter with him too. She's coming, and of course she must have a little bit of an idea that she's not the most popular Republican in the world. That's why she had to go to a much more progressive, modern-day party. So she jumps over to Kamala Harris. I don't know what kind of a move that is, but I think if they don't have their way in this campaign, we'll probably not hear much about those two people ever again.
That'd be nice.
But the one thing about this, it's such an irony of what they're doing. It sort of gets to be a joke about whether or not you can shout when the other person's speaking, and I think my feeling about that is that if I were in a debate and I had something to do with writing the rules, I would say, how about a little bit of decorum? What about a little bit of the other thing I'd do if you had open things to maybe calm this thing down is have an unofficial referee who just records the rudeness. Okay, when anyone said something rude, mark them down, just for fun and games. See if and see who could be the rudest, and boy, they'd go to it. And by the end of that program, they'd be yelling and shouting, "I want more!" I want to prove I'm the good guy. But anyway, there's a lot of talk about that. I think long term, it's a bit of irony that right now, the Democrats don't want to follow the rules they wrote. So things don't always work out the way they think they're going to. So they were determined to get the rules changed back to what Trump liked. So I don't know what their game is, but it's one thing is it's a distraction from the real problems of this country: war and peace, monetary policy, economy, immigration. This is a distraction. There's more talk about this than the real issues.
Yeah, well, that first issue that we're doing today is an important one because, in fact, and I thought of you when I highlighted this part, put up that first clip. Now, this is from Politico, and it says, this is the story, Dick Cheney supports Harris, says Trump, quote, can never be trusted with power again. And that just, I think that says everything you need to know about the neocons. They're never wrong. They never apologize. This is a man who lied us into war. And everyone knows that he lied us into war. A war in which 1 million Iraqis were killed and thousands of American troops were killed. And he has the gall to say that Trump, for all his faults, should never be trusted with power again. I would say someone like Dick Cheney and the neocons should never be trusted with power again.
And I would say that maybe there will be more irony here, that by doing this, you take, I wonder if he's spying for Trump in there doing this.
Yeah.
What is he doing this to help Trump? But can you imagine very many sincere constitutionalists, conservative, or libertarians would say, "Oh, yeah, boy, I'm glad I'm glad to hear about this because we want to know what's going on." But they're going to turn around. If I were to run for something, and I don't have it on my mind, but that would be the last. I would disown an endorsement like that. They often wonder about, when the really, really bad people, they try to tie politicians to the bad people. But this is one that would deserve separation of ideas, because there can be anybody serious about liberty cannot be interested in promoting the Cheneys.
Yeah, the thing is, talk about not reading the room. Everyone in the country is sick of the neocons. We talk about polls all the time. People are sick of the endless war. They're sick of what's happening in the Middle East. They're sick of the war in Ukraine. They're sick of the neocons. So exactly like you say, Dr. Paul, if I was Kamala Harris, I would say, well, I appreciate the kind words of the gentleman. Nevertheless, we definitely don't want to go back to the dark days of George W. Bush. But, we've been talking about this as well. The people on the so-called left in America, our friends on the progressive side would say they're not real left, they're neoliberals, but they are now embracing George W. Bush. We remember in the early times when he took us to war with Iraq, we had a lot of the progressives on our side, and now they're rehabilitating Cheney, they're rehabilitating all the neocons who left the Democratic Party in the 50s and 60s and became Republicans in the 70s and 80s, and now they're going back to their roots.
Liz Cheney, she made a name for herself, a negative name, when it came that when they were going to punish those insurrectionists that went to the Capitol and demonstrated, and on January 6th, she was the chairman of the committee.
Yeah.
I mean, the Democrats made her the chairman of the committee of investigation, and I think that is the height of disloyalty to any pretense. Even I, who was pretty independent, there was a certain amount of decorum I owed by being a Republican, because maybe a third of my votes were Republican. So I was cautious when there was a time on procedures that I would try my best to be a Republican. But that never obligated me to go against my promises and my pledge and the Constitution. So it was a little bit different. This is exactly the opposite.
Yes.
This is like it falls more in the category of a traitor, a liar. Because they were going to make sure there was no take over this government, the whole thing. But that thing, if Trump wins, and he has a chance, I'm sure, that there's going to be more to say about January 6th.
Yeah, I hope so.
And I hope they don't build a statute for her.
Yeah.
They're liable to tear down Jefferson and put up Liz Cheney.
Oh, that'd be something, wouldn't it?
It could have get that. I know I can't get that bad. That has to be just a ridiculous joke.
Yeah. But the neocons are parasites. They'll latch on to whatever, they're like ticks. They'll latch on to whatever body has the most blood, and they'll suck it dry, then they'll go to the next one. So I think this whole Cheney thing, this whole Cheney flip-flop, if you call it that, really should be viewed as a cautionary tale to Republicans more than anything else, because they loved putting party over principle when they had the Dick Cheneys and they had anyone coming aboard that would get them elected. But those same Dick Cheneys of the world who put party over principle would then be just as happy to switch over to another party as they wish. So you live by the sword, you die by the sword. So all the Republicans embracing Cheney this whole time, well, this is what you get. You get what you paid for.
You know, they paint themselves as very great people, you know, the principled people, and saving the country, as saving democracy, not the radicalism that they believe in. And they want to be above partisanship and that sort of thing. But I see them in a larger sense that they reject the whole principle of natural law and a goal to tell the truth. If you look at all these, how many major untruths have they stated?
Yeah.
And they'll linger. I don't think that history will rewrite this. I think a lot of the corruption in the Department of Justice and the FBI and the Secret Service, that eventually will be written, because people right now, and they're starting to wake up and realize how disloyal that group of people is. But I think more and more will happen that over time they'll realize that the real enemy was the coup that occurred a few years back, decades back, where a group of people took over the Justice Department and took over some of the most important parts of our government. And this has made it so that there is a lot of chaos, and it participates. Matter of fact, it is the reason this country is so messed up right now, financially, morally, and really socially as well. So this is something that I don't think is understood well, and so it just baffles me that, you know, what number of people would be cheering this decision for, oh, Cheney's there, we've wanted her, this really gives Kamala Harris a big boost. Are they out there?
Yeah, they're out there. That's in more ways than one. Well, we want to talk a little bit about Tulsi Gabbard's reaction, but first I do want to thank Conrail 2020, who on Super Chat gave us $20, and he made a point, he or she made the point, I should say. To neoconservatives like Cheney, it does not matter who wins or loses. If wars and conflicts come about, they'll play both sides to achieve their objectives, because both parties will provide, and that is a good point. And that is a good segue into Tulsi Gabbard, because although we don't agree with Tulsi on everything, she's the opposite of Cheney. She's a person who puts principles over party. She quit her party, the Democratic Party, when she realized that the principles it espoused are not the principles that she thinks are the way, the way forward to America. She called them the party of war when she quit. So she, I think, to me, epitomizes someone, and there are a few others who put principles over parties. But let's listen to, she went over on tour with Tucker Carlson, and she reacted to Cheney's endorsement. Let's listen to 1:45 of Tulsi Gabbard. I know it's longer than we usually do, but she gets to the point right at that 1:45. If we can cue that up and let's listen to Tulsi.
Message for my Democrat friends, my independent friends, those who may not be sure about who they're voting for in this election. Dick Cheney has just made the choice very clear. A vote for Kamala Harris is a vote for Dick Cheney, the architect of everything that has gone wrong in the Middle East for the last few decades. And so it's interesting, because if you listen to the New York Times or some of the other mainstream media, they're saying, oh, you know, don't expect much from Kamala Harris in the way of policies and details and plans, and we're not going to know much about what kind of president she's going to be because she doesn't have much time. They're conveniently ignoring the fact that she's been there working in the White House the last 3.5 years alongside Joe Biden. She's been the last one in the room, according to her, as these big decisions are being made. But we look at who she says, her response to the Dick Cheney announcement today was that she was honored to have his endorsement. And we got military veterans in the house. Got a lot of you who probably served in the Middle East like I did. And so it sickened me, Tucker, to read those words today, both from Dick Cheney, Liz Cheney, and Kamala Harris, because we have people who we care very much about who were killed in those wars because of Dick Cheney.
Wow, now that is powerful. We have people that we care about who were killed in those wars because of Dick Cheney.
That is good. She actually, or the article we looked at from Zero Head referenced something I said, but I don't usually talk about that. But they mentioned the fact that these types of people, the Cheneys, like the ones that are all for all these wars, that I use the term chicken hawk.
Yeah.
But I want to correct that. I didn't create that word. The chicken hawk issue has been around. it just was a very appropriate when I was in those debates.
Yeah.
Because when they were blasting me for being anti-military, anti-troops, and all that kind of stuff, and we did the most important thing of what we just listened to was the loud applause of getting out of these places. And that's what I keep saying. There's no reason why we should lose this argument. And that's why. That's why, of course, debates are important, but most of the time the debates deteriorate, and yet they're still worthwhile. We have to get up the issues, and I think in this campaign so far, immigration has become a stronger and stronger issue, but also people who are suffering from economic turmoil and inflation. That is getting to be a stronger issue.
And I think you're right, the tide is turning. You can see it from audiences like this and others. And so normally I'm not a big fan of politics, but I almost think that's an argument for people that do put principles over parties to seek office, because I think there is a market for it now where there wasn't before. Not just the half-hearted ones, but really the true people who are anti-war. But I want to remind people, there's probably some young people watching us, Dr. Paul, who, believe it or not, may not remember Dick Cheney like we do. But I want to put on a clip of Dick Cheney in 2002. And you remember when we in your office were struggling against this juggernaut, this war juggernaut, determined to have their war. And they had all their liars lined up. And they had the screws in Colin Powell's thumbs, forcing him to say what he was going to do halfway. But here is Dick Cheney, and he knew what he was saying was untrue. But let's put that second clip on just for the younger members of the audience so they'll know what kind of a monster we're dealing with here in Dick Cheney. That second, here we go. Listen to Dick Cheney, if we can get this. There we go.
Simply stated, there is no doubt that Saddam Hussein now has weapons of mass destruction. There is no doubt that he is amassing them to use against our friends, against our allies, and against us. And there is no doubt that his aggressive regional ambitions will lead him into future confrontations with his neighbors, confrontations that will involve both the weapons he has today and the ones he will continue to develop with his oil wealth.
So this is a lie. He knew when he said it, it was a lie, and 1 million people were killed because of that lie.
You know, lying has been known to be a negative for a long time. We know there's been a few thousand years since the Ten Commandments were written, and were directed not to lie. But thousands of years, even before the Ten Commandments were written, in Sumeria, even before they had printing presses, there were rules against lying. You know, false accusation, and hear that, and that is the most bald-faced lie ever. And then they do it in the name of principle. So you can't give people a lot of credit because they take a principle. What is the principle you're taking? And they're taking something that is a false principle, pretending it is a positive principle.
Exactly. Well, I want to put up just one clip and skip that one and go to the Crystal tweet. Bill Crystal, this is just an example. This is all you need to know about Dick Cheney's endorsement of Harris. So Meghan McCain the daughter of the late neocon monster John McCain, said, "Seeing all of these extreme progressives suddenly become Dick Cheney fans is objectively hilarious." To which Bill Kristol, King Neocon, the guy who has the distinct reputation of being wrong about everything, says, "Seeing Dick Cheney endorse a Democrat against Trump and seeing progressives express appreciation for Dick Cheney is the way forward. Country first." So that tells you everything you need to know about the neocons. They are going home to the Democratic Party, the warmongering Democratic Party. So anyway, now you alluded early in your introduction to the second thing we wanted to talk about a little bit, which is the debate tomorrow. We haven't put in a lot of time. We don't have a lot of time left. Nevertheless, put up that next clip. This is from Politico, and we don't know if this is a psyop, if it's kind of a flex before the debate, but if you'll put that next one on, Harris' team is worried that she'll be, quote, handcuffed by the debate rules set up by Biden. And as you suggested, Dr. Paul, it has to do with the turning off the microphones and giving each person a quiet time to make their point.
Yes, and they're dwelling on this, and the rules should be important, but they're really not looking for, and generally speaking, over the years, they're looking for fluff stuff. They're looking to how to avoid some of the debates, and this to me does not, bring out more truth, because that's not their goal. Their goal is to confuse people. They're demagogues, and they don't even understand, what the libertarian principle is, and the basic constitutional principle. The Bill of Rights. They always use it. They so often they use our language. I remember one time, one student after a campaign come up and said, "Boy, I really liked your emphasis on the Constitution." I said, "What did the guy after me? He said the same thing." And the whole thing was, he didn't believe him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is getting the truth out, because it's something that's been going on for thousands of years, and right now we have a growing number. Matter of fact, the nihilists are, growing in number faster than our side. But I still think that we're doing well. I think more and more people are understanding sound economic principles, even though the results that we have right now are still the results of 100 years of bad economic policies and bad political system. This is a time where I think freedom does have a chance, because the opposition is doing something, and we have to recognize it, and that is you have to cause chaos, get people questioning things and realizing, and we have a lot of chaos. Our job is to get people to ask the question, why? Why is it like this? There's something going on that caused this, and that's where I see success. And I still see a lot of young people. How many young people did we have at our conference the other day? A lot of them.
Yeah.
And the work you're doing with having the class and the special thing, that is really great, because so many of them have gone on and have done other things. There's so many people I meet, on radios and television shows and correspondents that are really very, very solid, which I don't think was, it was hard to find that. That wouldn't have been true in the early 70s.
Yeah.
It just wasn't there.
Yeah. Well, that's a good segue, I guess, to my closing, which is that we did have, like you say, we did have the Ron Paul Scholar Seminar the day before. It was a very successful, it was our biggest class ever. We don't want to get too big because we have to feel like a graduate seminar, but we had, imagine sitting down, there was a terrific lecture on the Bill of Rights from Andrew Napolitano. All the speakers were great. But the next day we did have a big conference. And again, I asked the audience, Dr. Paul, how many of you is this your first Ron Paul Institute conference? Now for you and I, that was our 8th, at least our 8th DC conference. But I noticed, I don't know if you looked around, but I noticed about a third of the people at least, they raised their hand and said this is their first one. And we even had a few when I asked the other question, how many have been to all 8? We had a few of them answer, and I had in my mind I was going to give them something for free, and I was a little worried that too many of them would say that. But we did give away a couple of things for everyone, someone who's been to all 3 of those. But we had a great event. We had the biggest crowd we've had in a long time, and I think they were very enthusiastic, a good, enthusiastic crowd. And I did bring a couple pictures. Now, our friend Michael Brown, who videotaped, I guess that's an archaic term, but who somehow recorded the show for us. He also snapped a couple of photos, so he gets full photo credit for this. But put on this person. Now, this is just a sense of the crowd. There's no real context here, but it was a very large crowd. The room was full. I actually, for the first time in a few years, I saw people standing in the back because they were having a tough time finding a chair, and I was very happy about this. And something else that everyone was happy about is this next photo, Dr. Paul. And here you are. You're looking happy. You gave a great talk. Everyone talked afterwards about it, and I do have all of the videos. And I'm struggling to get those up. There are 9 of them, 9 speeches. So, the upload time is short, but I'm going to be working on it today. I've got people helping me work on it today and have those available, and I'll make them available on our different social media outlets.
And they did follow one of my rules, and that is when you get together, you're supposed to have some fun.
Yeah,
and they really do, and they get to meet people and get to know people, and they follow up and all that. That picture, it was half decent.
Michael Brown is
he did right, but on the internet, I had somebody write something very nice, and they were obviously very friendly toward me, and I just didn't like the picture.
It's hard because you snap and then someone moves, and
So this one made up
that's
for it.
Michael Brown.
Yeah,
is
you
great.
have to work hard. He must be good to be able to get a nice picture.
Yeah, I know. Seymour Mac Productions is a company, and I highly recommend them.
I think the challenge that we have is very clear cut. We know what our problems are, and we know what the answers are to a large degree. But we can't reach it unless we don't have a majority opinion of people believing telling the truth is a good idea. And lying to other people is bad. But when you lie to oneself, that is really bad. And some of these people, if you want to give them the benefit of the doubt, which they don't deserve, you got to give them a break. They don't know better. They're lying to themselves. They're convinced that the government can do anything they want, even if it's against the rules and laws of what individuals can do. You can't steal, but we just lie down and say, the government can steal. And they haven't seen my bumper sticker that says, don't steal. The government hates competition, and then they come after you. The IRS comes after you, and the FBI comes after you because they're doing the very thing that if you as an individual did that to your neighbor, you would be arrested, but the government gets away with it. But until it gets broke. And that's why we live in a special era, because we are now broke. We're morally corrupt, and we're broke financially, and there's lying is epidemic. At the same time, we're seeing the growth of the remnant of people that know and understand what truth is all about, and why there's a big difference between what we look at and when people come along and say, oh, well, what we have to do is we have to have a reformation, and we have to bring in people that want to establish a different type of government. They may be neocons, they may be for war, they may be for, but it's always for a good reason. Well, that is not a justification. Good intentions never work. They usually always backfire, and that is why it's such a challenging job, is when people promise things and then they can steal for a good many years and give people what they said they were going to give them until everybody goes broke, and then we have problems. So that is what's happening, and we have to wake up more people to realize that our problems cannot be solved by expanding the size and scope of government and printing more money and having more war. But it can if we expand the number of people who believe and understand what liberty is all about and promote the cause of liberty. And then I believe we will make progress for the goal of peace and prosperity. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.